Alright, hello everybody. Welcome to another talk from the Harvard Video Game Developers Club. My name is Rumi Khan. Today I'm going to be talking about wide versus tall gameplay in grand strategy games. It's a bit of an esoteric topic, but I think it's important and it can teach you a lot for games that are not just grand strategy, but any kind of game where there are multiple ways to approach a specific issue. And it also goes a bit into specific examples of how designers have dealt with things in a good way and in a bad way, at least in my personal opinion. So there'll be some examples, and so today we can see this is a loading screen from a game called Crusader Kings 2. It has really cool loading screens. In fact, I think most of the backgrounds are just from this game because the loading screens are absolutely wild. So if you don't know what grand strategy looks like, I'm just going to show you 3 images, and I want you to just digest them like mentally. Think about what this means to you as a gamer. So this is a game called Crusader Kings 2. This is the screen that controls your succession laws in your kingdom. This is a game called EU4, Europe Universalis 4. This is a trade map of Southern Africa. And then this is a game called Hearts of Iron 4, and this is the production menu for producing ships, army weapons, and tanks for your nation. So as you can see, grand strategy games are all about building up a nation or an entity and going out in the world. Usually the interface is like a map or a galactic map of some kind, and you can mess around with your economy, internal politics, your military, diplomacy, all kinds of stuff. Now, you saw those 3 images, and what I'd like to tell you is I actually arranged those images in reverse order of how complex those games actually are. Hearts of Iron 4 is a really simple game compared to the previous 2. So the fact that this is the most simple game, I think in my opinion, among the grand strategy suite is kind of going, there's a kind of complexity to these games. They get really complicated, and at some points are essentially interactive spreadsheets. So, with that said, I want to talk about the philosophy that underlines these kind of games that are all about building up a nation state or an entity and going out in the world. So it's important to differentiate the game from Civ. So Civ and games of its like are grand strategy in a way that you control a nation state, or you control some kind of state or some kind of country or whatever, and you mess around with your neighbors, you conquer their objectives. The reason grand strategy is unique is for the 3 things I say that make them really unique. It's that they have a very specific scope, right? So that connects them to they're a bit more realistic than like Civ. So like you're not gonna have like Cleopatra making friends with Gandhi. That's not gonna happen, right? There's usually like a realistic scope, like say a specific time period. There's a new game, Imperator, coming out that only takes place between like 300 BC and 600 BC or something, right? And all the people there are like real people who mess around, so you can mess around in that time period, right? The second thing is that they're inherently complex. They aim to try and emulate as many things that would be realistic as possible. So a game like Stellaris, which I'll be talking about later, is a space grand strategy game that has diplomacy, a trade system. You can customize your ship components. You can build customized navies. You can genetically modify your leaders. You can have your populations. You can have robots. And you can have psionics, and it gets really complicated. And the third thing is that grand strategy games also have like a particular target demographic of like people like think of the elves of the PC gaming kingdom, right? People who want a lot of complexity from a strategy game. So like the EVE Online people in strategy games. So like there's a common joke that Civ, like once you play EU4, you can never play Civ again. And that's because these games offer a level of depth and complexity that you cannot get from normal arcade type strategy games. However, there's an underlying philosophy behind these games, which is to ultimately gain strength. And the ways to gain strength are through these 6 kind of facets I'll be talking about that exist, I would say, in every single grand strategy game to an extent. So economics and income, which is your money, is really important, right? The next thing is your administrative limits. So these, I'll go into this a bit when I go to EU4, but this is supposed to represent things like your ability to administer land or whatever. Your population and land, so how big you are you a big country? Your military capability, like how strong can you fight? Your diplomacy, so your interaction with your neighbors and other factions, whether they be AI or human, like controlled by people in a multiplayer game. And finally, your technology, so this is more of a limitation of what you can do. So I use the word technology, and like a fantasy game would be magic. So like anything that kind of is like a limitation of what you can do that's irrelevant to your capabilities. Alright, so this is an example of how it can get pretty wild. So this is this is for a game, Europe Universalis 4. This is a conversion chart that one of the really good players made, where he talks about the different kind of resources in the game and how you can convert them to other resources if you're trying to conquer the world. So resources like manpower, seizing land, coin, cost, aggressive expansion, money, a whole bunch of buzzwords, a whole bunch of terms. But the idea is that these are all inherently interconnected in like an internal economy that includes more than just money, but also your ability to fight and your ability to rule land. For example, there, aggressive expansion is an example of diplomacy. Monarch points is an example of administrative limits, and power is military capacity. So, these all kind of fit in. Obviously, this doesn't talk about technology at all because they're focusing on world conquest, not any other goals. So they're not going to talk about that very often. But I imagine it's included in military capabilities. So there is a central problem of grand strategy games. That if the goal is to gain strength through all these things, like through having good income, having good military, having good size, then we have this little equation like I like to call power equals land equals power. So this is not real math, but it gets to the idea that, okay, those 6 things I said earlier, right? How do I get more money? Well, the easiest way to get more money is to have tons of land so you can tax people. Easy. Okay, how do I get more administrative capacity? Well, just have a big country so you have a lot of people to rule. Okay, how do I get more population? Well, just have a big country. How do I get a bigger military? Have a big country, big armies, you know. How do I have good diplomacy? Well, if you're really strong, you're really big, everyone will want to be your ally. So those 5 things, which are the six things that you use to gain strength, can just be like directly inherited from just having a big nation. Like if you're like Russia versus Estonia, you're gonna have all those things. The only thing that you might not have is technology. So I'll be getting to that a little bit later. But that I think is a problem because now we have these complex games with that incredible chart, like all these levels of complexity. But at the end of the day, you can just reduce it down to have a big country and you win, right? All those production lines, succession laws, it's all nonsense if you have a big country. Then you just win everywhere. So if you go back to that horrifying convergent chart, and you actually look at all the capabilities, to get all these, you just need a big country. To get more manpower, to get less aggressive expansion, to get more money, to have happier states, more prestige, to have more treaties, to get more coring costs, to have more seizing land, to have less autonomy. All these things you just get from having a bigger country. So this essentially creates an endless snowballing loop where you just get a bigger country making you more powerful, and it makes every single grand strategy game that is not designed well play exactly the same. So the term is a map painter or a blobbing game, where you just paint the map with the color of your nation, and every single game just reduces into like India invading Britain or Britain invading like South America. It's like utterly nonsensical. Okay, so let's get into tall versus wide, this idea. Now I've said the problem, I think, that a lot of people have with the grand strategy genre, that playing, like just conquering everything endlessly, because it's the only rational thing to do. Because if there's one thing you can know about players is that they will optimize the fun out of any game you give them. Is that developers and designers are like, well, I don't want people to do that. And there are a couple reasons why you don't want to do that, and I'll get into that later. So here comes the idea of playing tall. So earlier I mentioned those 6 things that can give you strength, and you can get them all by conquering some technology. Well, can't you also get those by just like developing your country and being happy and peaceful and stable? You can have a better economy, better military, better administration, right? So there's a bit of philosophy to playing wide versus tall. I got one of the Crusader Kings 2 pictures that don't like the dilemma. I think it works for this. So for wide play, the way you win is you build a strong military, you take land and gain resources, you use your resources to improve yourself, like say gain new allies, get better technology, get more leaders, and then you use your improvements to build a strong army, and it continues. And this is how grand strategy games basically play for a majority of people. And it's fun. Like playing wide is fun. But what if you want to do something different? Like, is there something different we can do? And this is where the idea of tall play comes in, where instead of building wide over your neighbors, you build up into the sky, build big cities and whatnot. So tall play is all about building an internal economy, using your resources that you got from your internal economy to improve yourself, and then fulfilling strategic objectives. Now, if you notice, one of these is a really specific, like I said, some specific things in one of these categories, and I said some pretty vague things in another category. And you can see where the problem with tall play starts to come in. So we'll be getting to that next slide. So wide play in general is characterized as being effective but inefficient, because it is generally the superior way to play the game, right? So there's an external focus, and it's also, more importantly, it's easier to design for, right? So if you want to build a game that's a map painter, it's super easy. Just have bigger country equal bigger military, and then when it comes down to winning battles, it's like the you shove tactics and whatnot. But the major obstacles are internal stability, revolts, and actually conquering your neighbors, which can make the game really fun. Like conquering your neighbors is fun, you know, like there's a lot of challenge there to learning when to attack. But tall play has its own problems. It's the idea behind tall play is to be efficient, but it's ineffective. In that, like, you're small, so you're more efficient, and there's this idea that if you're smaller, well, maybe you have better technology or something. But the problem comes in that, well, if you're focused internally, how do you design for that? Obstacles will generally be external enemies, which would not be obstacles if you just played wide. So ultimately, the problem with trying to create if the way the game is organized, that you get bigger, you get stronger, then any way to encourage people to stay small is like forcing them to do something that is against their own intentions. So I'm a tall player, for the record. I identify as a tall player. Like, I love playing tall. It's what I do in every basically grand strategy game. I don't like playing wide. It's boring. I don't want to fight all the time. I want to do like weird things. So this is troublesome for me because I'm thinking, well, what would I want a game designer to give to me as a tall player, right? Would I want them to just nerf every big country? So we'll be talking about that in a bit. So why do we care? Like, why is it important to even, like, why am I a relevant person? Like, why do I want to play tall? Why would you ever cater to tall players? And designers have these 4 ideas, I think, that I've come up with, right? There's the element of historicity and realism. In real life, the biggest, widest nations do not always win battles, right? Like, there are small, tiny countries that are able to survive, right? And if one of the goals of the grand strategy genre is to have an element of realism or historicity or whatever, then allowing smaller nations to be able to put up a fight is an important part of that. It becomes hard, though, because how do you add that as a game mechanic? Like, do smaller nations get an arbitrary bonus? That seems a bit random and very not realistic, because in real life, smaller nations got stomped all the time. The other reason is to change things up. So it can get very repetitive to just do the same thing again and again and again, every time you play the game. You just conquer your neighbors, right? So the way Civ solves this is by having the alternate victory system, which would never fit in a grand strategy game since they make no sense. But in a grand strategy game where the objectives are a little bit more player-defined, since it's more sandboxy, they'd want to have different avenues to success that aren't just doing the same thing again. The other option is to prevent unwinnable situations. So just in the terms of game balance, if you're surrounded by big nations, you should still be able to survive if you're a good player. So if the only way you can win is by being big, well, if you're small, you're kind of screwed. So I think there's like a valid game balance argument for tall play being valid. And finally, people just like playing tall. Like, there's something, you know, like if I'm playing European Renaissance 4 and I'm playing Portugal, I don't want to conquer Spain, right? I'm like a little rectangle. I want to stay a rectangle the entire game and still be powerful, which Portugal kind of did in real life, right? So like there's kind of like this is like a romantic attachment to the idea of being small but really tall, like a really like Venice or something, you know. And I'll be going into an example that I actually in a game I played. So there are a lot of problems with designing for tall play. This is a really graphic image actually. I hope it's okay for you guys. This is from an expansion for CK2 where they added a black depth. So there are some serious problems. The first thing is it's hard to make engaging mechanics. So think of it this way, right? If I'm playing the game Imperator, which is going to come out, and I'm playing the Roman Empire, right? I'm a small city-state of Rome. My goal is to conquer the Mediterranean. That inherently sounds fun, right? Because I get to march my armies around. I get to look at who's weak and who's strong. I sail my armies over to Egypt, or I attack like Spain or whatever. But if I'm playing tall and I want to build my economy up, how would you make a mechanic for that? Like, how would you do that? Right? So, well, I guess you just wait and your population grows because there's no war. Or maybe you could, like, every couple of years or so, like, go to one of your, like, politicians and be like, hey, build a city here. But, like, if it's a strategy game where the main way you interact with the world is through menus, then, like, how do you make that engaging? The answer is nobody really knows. I have not seen a single solution to this problem. Like, I have not seen a developer fix this problem. This is like, it is more fun to march your armies around and invade your neighbors because you control your armies. But you don't control, like, the business people in your nation. The closest it's ever come to a game solving this problem, in my honest opinion, is a video game called Victoria 2. You guys heard of that game? It's really obscure, but it's like, yeah, you've heard. Okay, it's very popular. So Victoria 2 has an entire simulated, like, imperialist economy from like the 1800s to like the 1900s, and the way you can play internally there by like messing with your like parliament and economy and like helping the capitalist or helping the communist, and it's very, you can be hands-on, you can be hands-off, but like you build up an internal economy. But even there, the problem with that is to expand your internal economy, you have to colonize Africa, or you have to beat up your neighbors, or you have to force your neighbors into peace treaties. So even then, to build an internal economy, you have to go outwards. You cannot ever have the internal focus. The internal focus always has to supplement an external focus. So it's really hard to have a purely tall-focused game. Except there's one game I think it's possible in, and I'll talk about that later. There's one game I think you can do it in legitimately. So it's hard to make engaging fun mechanics in that, right? Unless you kind of pressing a button every couple of minutes. The next thing is that it's hard to make it work in a logical economy system. So in a game like Imperator, or in a game like Crusader Kings, where the only way you earn money is through taxation, having more land will just make you bigger. Like, it'll just make you have more money, right? And the games have minor mechanics to deal with that, like Crusader Kings 2, there are different administrators who take like a slice off, but you will always make more money the bigger you are. So other games have to deal with this, like, okay, well, how can you generate money while being small? Like, how can you as a small country compete with the income of a big country? So they'll create mechanics like trade, and EU4 tries this admirably with its trade system, where I don't want to get into the details, but it's very complicated. It's almost obscure in many ways, but I love it a lot. It's very, very well designed. The problem with it is that at the end of the day, the way to make the most money off of trade is to strategically sail to other parts of the world and conquer them, or to attack your neighbors and conquer them. So they don't get trade income, you could get. This is a zero-sum game. So even then, when people have tried to solve this issue of how to make like small nations make more money than big nations, it falls back to the same old wide gimmicks. So tall play is looking pretty unrealistic right now. Like, it seems pretty much like a pipe dream. And it's going to get even worse because there are so many more problems. Another problem is that technology and ideas aren't king. So as I mentioned earlier, there was those 6 ways to get strong, right? And the only way that, like, if you were to think very efficiently, like, what's the fastest way I can make smaller nations better off? Well, why don't we give them better technology arbitrarily, right? Which some of Stellaris actually does. Let's just say that if you're big, you'll be like less advanced. Okay, small nations get technology, and that makes sense. That's like the only thing that seems directly unrelated to your size as a nation. Well, the answer is that you can't just like make tiny nations like absurdly technologically advanced. That makes no sense. So it's hard to make the bonus of technology outweigh all the failings in literally every other attribute. So that's not really a good solution, and most people do that solution. In fact, like most designers will just, because it's very simple to implement a modifier and you're done. Yes, you can be small, you get a bonus. But these aren't like ideas is another mechanic that in Imperator that they're adding to try and fix it, and I don't think it'll work. Where the idea is that if you're a smaller nation, there are these things called ideas that give you bonuses to your military and your state. And if you're smaller, they're cheaper. But I don't think minor bonuses are going to outweigh for being outnumbered by 2. You guys saw something like that. And the final answer is that the AI is really bad at dealing with it. Making an AI that can play tall is going to be always hard, because when you play wide, it's very simple. You just attack your neighbors and you expand. But when you're playing tall, you have to foresee. You have to foresee, how will my economy grow? How do I want to specialize this province or this city? Is that neighbor a threat? Can I make friends with that neighbor but not friends with that neighbor? Should I form an alliance with my other neighbor to prevent that one from attacking me? Finally, there's a problem with that. When you play tall, you always have to self-constrict yourself, because getting more land is so good, because not only do you gain strength, but your enemy gains weakness. But if you're playing tall, you only gain strength, and your enemy doesn't gain weakness at all. So having an AI arbitrarily self-constrain itself is not good AI design. So it's really hard to develop AI that can do this effectively. And AI can also be really bad at dealing with tall players too. So from my experience. So ultimately, the problem is, so if you want people to play tall, and we have all these problems, what should we do? Right? Should we incentivize tall play, or disincentivize wide play? So how would you guys incentivize tall play to fix these problems? Any ideas?
So you mentioned some of the ideas of giving small buffs, like things like technology and whatnot.
Yep.
That's
like the classical, but do you have any other ideas?
Right. I just wanted some time to think about that.
Like, how would you incentivize people to play tall if you wanted to do that? Any ideas?
You mentioned alternative win conditions, but you're saying that's not an option?
It's not an option. It won't really work in a grand strategy game because they're so based in realism that they're not like the player base will reject anything like Coco victory or like they don't want victory conditions at all, honestly, because the idea is to be more sandboxy, right? Like who won like history, who wins space? It's kind of like arbitrary. The point is to get away from the arcadiness. So that is an interesting idea, though. Having unique win conditions in Civ 6 does solve in my opinion, it solves the problem for that game. It does solve the tall play because you can play tall and have a cultural nation rather than a nation.
Maybe like extending the time period very far would kind of.
Yeah, but the problem with that is that if you have longer time period, then the wider nations will snowball faster, right? You're just giving them more time to expand.
But like if they kind of like, because I'm thinking realism, right? In real life.
But what's the so what's the idea? So you're saying the wide nations eventually start failing?
Yeah. In real life.
See, do you see how this happens? We're trying to think of ideas to incentivize tall play, and all we do is find ideas to disincentivize wide play. This is what happens in every single grand strategy game. When they try to fix this problem, all they do is they make wide play worse, which is really bad because everyone just does wide play anyway. A couple months ago, there was a huge patch in EU4 where they wanted to make wide play less. They wanted to encourage tall play, right? So they did it by doing two things. They buffed subjects, which are like you can vassalize another nation, so they're your minion, right? So they buffed subjects, right, which is good. It's a good thing to do. That encourages tall play. Good job, right? And then they said, okay, well, we're also going to make religious conversion 18 times more expensive. We're going to create an arbitrary nation-size cap, and if you're above it, your nation suffers horrible corruption that makes everything more inefficient. Also, revolts are twice as bad. Did people play tall? No, they just kept playing wide because wide is 8 times more efficient. It's so much more efficient. All they did was suffer more arbitrarily.
What about alliances?
Yes, that's another interesting way. So alliances are that's a good way, right? Because I kind of dismissed diplomacy earlier because I said, well, if you're big and strong, everyone will want to ally you. Well, what if you're weak? You can ally all your friends and stand up to the big strong one, right? And that's a great way to do it. I would say it's one of the good solutions people should implement, but it's really hard to make AI that can do that. A game that does it really well is any game that has like an aggressive expansion mechanic, where like if you get really big, everyone gets really upset at you. I think Civ has that, right? But EU4 has a really interesting one where it's just like every time you take land, everyone gets like a modifier with you, and if you go too high, they hate you. Stellaris has it too. So that's like a way to. The problem with aggressive expansion, right, is that also disincentivizes to wide play, right? It's the same exact problem. It sure protects the small countries, but by banding up with your neighbors to not get attacked, you gain nothing. All you do is avoid losses. The tall player gains nothing from protecting itself. It avoids punishment. All it does is punish the wide player, who now has to deal with a coalition who wants to kill them. So it's so hard.
What about defense-only military?
Yeah, that also only hurts the wide player because the tall player doesn't get anything from it. Oh, I have a bunch of defensive alliances. That doesn't earn me more money. It doesn't give me a stronger military. It doesn't make me fulfill my goals of role playing or whatever.
Wait, but it makes it harder for them to get invaded, right?
Yeah, but that's not a benefit. That's just avoiding a bad thing. I don't feel rewarded. I feel like I just avoided a punishment.
Okay.
And all it does is again hurt the wide player who wants to expand.
What was wrong with having new technology or certain resources only attainable through tall play?
Yeah, so again, I'm going to get to that. Stellaris does that, and it's really good. That's an excellent solution. So yeah, wow, you found one. Cool. Yeah, it's an excellent way to solve it. So if you have certain things that only tall players can get to, that are like unique and give like some kind of niche, that's really cool. Like for example, Stellaris. Well, I'll get to it, but you can do that in a sci-fi game. I don't think you can do that in a historical game, unfortunately. The way I would do it is maybe okay, well, if you're Venice, you get like a merchant. So EU4 actually tries that. So it's a historical game, right? So countries like the Netherlands and Portugal are meant to be played as tall, like they're small, but they get like big colonies, but they're like really tiny countries that are supposed to be really rich. And the way they do that is they create these like weird mechanics that like say, okay, well, all the trade in the world flows to Portugal, so there's no reason for you to expand. Or another nation is Prussia, who is supposed to be small but a military powerhouse. So if it has over 20 provinces, it starts to suffer penalties. Or a nation like Venice, which is also supposed to be a really rich nation but small, so if it gets over 20 provinces, it starts to suffer penalties. So even as they're encouraging certain nations to be played tall, and they benefit from being played tall, like the way they've been built, they just add penalties, right, instead of giving rewards. Like in my opinion, I would change Prussia rather than for it to have penalties when it has over 20 provinces, to have it have bonuses when it has less than 20 provinces. I think it's better. I think it's always better to buff than nerf, but that's just my Smash Brothers perspective talking. So, okay, so obviously this is like a really complicated problem because for one thing, it's hard to do in practice as a designer, right? Like it's really easy to just disincentivize wide play, it's hard to incentivize tall play. But it's also wrapped up in the question of why are we even wasting our time with this really complicated issue? Who cares about tall players? Who cares about them? And then we have a debate, well, okay, well, we want to care about them, and we're going to work really, really hard to please them. But every time we do that, all the wide players get really angry. But if you have a vision for a game that wants to be realistic or historical, or if you want to have a vision for a game where even if you're small, you can still fight back, you have to do this. You have to have something of tall play. Like in Civ, right, if you're really small and you're surrounded by big neighbors, you're dead. Like, it's over. But in a game like EU4, which has some tall mechanics, you can maybe survive. You'll probably die. And in a game like Stellaris, you can be just fine. In fact, you can be stronger. So, okay. So I'm going to give some examples other designers have of dealing with this problem. So this is EU4, okay? So as I said earlier, in EU4 you get more money from being bigger, you get more military from being bigger, you get more what was the other? You get more diplomacy. If you're a bigger nation, more people will be friendly with you, which makes sense if that's the time period, right? There are only two things that you don't get from being bigger, right? Monarch points, which I'll explain what those are, and technology, right? The technology comes from monarch points. So monarch points is EU4's mechanic, other than like revolts and aggressive expansion, of dealing with wide play. So basically what happens is every time you have a monarch, they have a rating between 0 to 6 on 3 attributes: administration, diplomacy, and military, right? So they represent the idea that you have a random monarch, they're either like an idiot 000 or they're like a genius 666. So for example, 666 rulers in EU4's timeline, I think there's only like Akbar the First, Skanderberg, like it's literally like 3 or 4 people. Like Napoleon is a 656. Like he's not even perfect, right? He's Napoleon. So the idea is that to represent the randomness of historical rulers. So when you have these stats, right, that represent your ruler, or I guess Bobby B. So Bobby B has these awesome stats. He's the ruler of Prussia. 666 is a god, right? Every month you gain 6 admin, 6 dip, and 6 military power. And you can spend that power on doing things. You can spend that power on integrating new land into your nation. You can spend that power on boosting your technology. You can spend that power on like increasing stability. So if you're a big nation and a small nation, you can have the exact same monarch point growth. There are very few ways to increase it, actually. The ways to increase it are to hire advisors, which cost money. So bigger nations will have slightly more monarch points, but because they'll need to spend more when they come. So I actually think it's a decently balanced. Here's the problem. I just said that you can spend DINT points to increase your technology, or reduce your war exhaustion, or build a trade post. What does that mean? Like what? Like my monarch produces like magic point. So in the community they're called paper mana, bird mana, and sword mana, because you're like a wizard who can like cast a spell to increase the stability in your nation or increase your technology by 1. And in fact, there's this weird random trade-off where like I could increase my stability or I could discover the plow. Like what? Like it's so nonsensical. It's like the only thing they can find. And here's the worst thing about it. They wanted to add tall play to the game. So they added a mechanic called development. So development is, so the province has 3 values. Tax, how much tax it produces. Production, how much it feeds into the trade network. And manpower, which is how much mana it gives you in the army. So now you can spend your mana to boost the value of a province. So here you can see you can spend 150 military points to improve manpower of 1, which gives you 412 men per month. Right? That's cool. So now I have to trade off between, should I make more porcelain in Beijing? Or should I get a better boat? Or should I reduce war exhaustion? Or should I take some extra provinces in this trade deal that I don't have a claim on? Right? Like, this is an arbitrary resource that represents nothing. That actually represents nothing. I don't know what it represents. Your ability to do things as a monarch that is irrelevant to how big your nation is. And it causes weird trade-offs. I think this is a really interesting idea, but in practice it's nonsensical. And here's the worst part. If I want to play tall, and I have played a tall game in EU4, it was the worst thing I ever did in my life. The only way to get your nation taller is to, every couple of years, wait till you have enough mana, and you press a button. Then you wait a couple more years, you press another button. Or you can stack some modifiers by pressing, so instead maybe you can get technology that'll give you an idea group that'll reduce development cost. So you wait a couple of years, you get that technology, then you get the idea group, you spend more mana points to get that idea, now it costs less mana. So you waste, so you gain more mana, right? And that's it. That's the tall loop. The tall loop is wait and press a button. Wait, press a button. If you want to get better at pressing the button, why don't you attack your neighbors and get some money? But that's why I play. So, that. So EU4 against tries is admirable, but this is pathetic. It's actually awful. Development, I think, is a horrible mechanic. I actually, well and truly think it's a mechanic that needs to be just removed and replaced. But modern points aren't that bad. They're just hilarious. Okay. Now let's talk about Stellaris. Wow, that is a badly moved image. Let me move back to the picture for you guys. I'll move it in. Because I actually want you guys to take a look at it. You guys can see it from here. This is view only, unfortunately. So, welcome. So Stellaris' game is the game, I think, in my opinion. And Stellaris is not that good of a game, for the record. It's a buggy mess, has a lot of problems. But there's one thing it does right. It does tall play so good, right? So there are a couple of reasons why. And I think the two main reasons are how it handles technology and how it handles planet management. So in Stellaris, you're like a sci-fi empire. You can colonize a planet, right? And the way planets work is you show up on a planet, and a planet can have as many people as you want. And you can build people or robots if you want to build robots. And they go into 3 different classes, rulers, specialists, workers, and those can be anything. Like if you're a corporate empire, these are like your executives, these are middle management, and these are the interns. And if you're like an aristocratic empire, these are your nobles, these are your these are bourgeois, these are the slaves or something. And if you're like a slaver empire, there's a 4th caste of slaves on the bottom. So like it can get pretty epic. Like you can come up with some weird things. There's actually a class called undesirables, which are people you're eating or like putting into your matrix machines to generate energy, which robots can do, which is so absurd. So okay, but you can stack as many people as you want on one planet, and you can just have it there. You can have so many people on one little planet. You can own one planet in the galaxy of like maybe 120 planets, and just have 1,000 people there, and it outproduces the entire empire, right? And you can get more people by just like naturally having more growth. However, you would think, oh, but big empires, they must be growing more people, right? Because they have more planets. Well, no, there's a little mechanical immigration. You see, if you're a nice empire and you're friendly, you can form immigration treaties with other people. And if you spend a lot of your money instead of wasting it on a big fleet on improving your planet, and it's really nice, and the foreign aliens will come to your planet and live there. And if you're not racist against them, then they can boost your economy. And suddenly you have more people than your neighbors because people are immigrating in. So don't tell Trump about that. There are a lot of other things. There are like a lot of crazy things you can do in this game to build planets to be really, really tough. Okay, and the fact that you can have one tiny little planet generating as much as an entire sector is something you can never do in like EU4. I think it's really cool, right? And it also has this kind of like caregiver gameplay where if you don't worry about war, you can care for these planets and let them grow and be very prosperous, especially if they're not being attacked. So I think this game does tall economic development well, where having more land does not equal more money. Having better developed land that you put more work into, is more money. And it's very rewarding. It's a very rewarding game. So, okay, and then let's talk about technology system, which ties to another mechanic called unity and ascension. So, technology in Stellaris is very simple. The bigger you are, the more penalty you have to it. However, the bigger you are, the more technology you can produce. It's a resource, don't think about it. So, in this way, you can be a big empire and still be technologically advanced as if you, instead of building farms and factories, you build a bunch of research labs, right? But you can be a small empire and also build a bunch of research labs and be just right there, same technology level. All it does is make wide players work harder for tech, which is fine, because they're already big and powerful, they have tons more money. But if you're small and you hyper-focus on tech, you can just stomp wide players, because tech is huge as well. And tech also gives you another thing called unity, which is like the representation of your cultural unification. Smaller nations have an advantage in unity. And unity gives you access to cool things called ascension perks. And I don't want to go into gameplay details, but essentially, this is what you were thinking before. Unique things that only small nations can get. So these ascension perks, a small nation will probably get them maybe 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years before a bigger nation. And these ascension perks can be anything from really minor buffs to your empire to getting crazy. Like one of the ascension perks called Mind Over Matter has a 2-stage ascension perk where you psionically ascend your entire species into psychics who can only communicate by like making eye contact with each other, and they can teleport and like it gets really. You can contact a shroud, which is like an extraterrestrial god, and you can make pacts with the different demons who live there. You can summon psionic avatars, which are like gigantic mind machines. Or you can turn your entire species into robots, which are like so much more efficient than stupid flashbacks. Like it is incredible. My favorite ascension path, which is actually generally considered the least fun, is the biological ascension, where you can genetically modify your species to just be anything. Like you can just do anything. Like you can turn people into anything. It's so powerful. If you're like an authoritarian empire, there's a lot of magic you can do there. You can like take away people's emotions and whatnot and turn them into like the ideal workers, right? So they cannot revolt. They literally cannot have an ideology distinct from your own. But if you're a good empire, then you can make everyone happy forever, no matter what. Also, yeah, it's turning on. You can make them happy forever, and you can make them enjoy life. And there are other mechanics that let you increase it, like you can add social welfare and whatnot. The sky's the limit, and you get access to it first as a small nation. Your fleet may be smaller, your economy may be slightly smaller, maybe not if you have good planets, but you will have cool stories to tell. Okay, so I want to show this in action as a game of Stellaris I was playing over break to show that this is possible. I'm not just like fibbing, you know. Okay, let me go back to full screen. Alright, so this is a game I was playing as a country called Faith Incorporated, which is, so you can see I'm like really small. I only own this part of the galaxy, right? But my capital has like, it has, I think it has, yeah, it has 281 pops. So that's about 280 billion people who live on this planet. It's my capital called headquarters, and it produces a lot of stuff. And if you like look at my economy, you can see that like it produces a lot of it, right? And I have tons of planets, but I'm really small. And you can see that they have fun little names. Okay, so if you look at my relative power to other empires, I have about 1.4 trillion people in my empire. These guys, I think, have about 2 trillion. These people have about 3 trillion. This person is like twice as big as me, but has half. But they're all pathetic compared to me, right? I have like 1 or 2 allies. I think my federation is called Forgotten Prophet. So I have like one. Yeah, that's the Rutharian Star Corps, the Lucas capitals in my federation. Yeah, they're great. So, and if you want to look at the final thing, if you look at my score breakdown at the end, look at where I'm getting my score from. It's not the number of systems. My number of systems is pathetic. It's not even my number of population. It's not even that good. My subject empire is good. I have vast lives of people on the board. My federation is decent. But look at the economic strength and technology that you're able to make for an empire that is literally less than 1/6 of the galaxy. Right? That is huge. That is huge money right there. So, in Stellaris, you can do this. You can be like a tiny little boy, you know, have a small population, small size, and just like masters everything. Now, it helps that I was a specific kind of star empire that they added called a mega corporation, which is really good for tall play. You can like make treaties and do all kinds of awful things. It's great. But it's possible in Stellaris, which is kind of huge in my opinion. So, I gave an example of the game doing it well, and I gave an example of the game doing it, in my opinion, not well at all. So, based on this, what do you think about the tall versus wide dilemma? Do you think like catering tall players is a waste of time, or do you see the beauty in being so tiny yet so powerful, right? Do you think it's worth it? Because I'll say this, right? If I had played that game wide, I would have conquered the galaxy, and I'd be stronger than I was as a tall small country, right? I surely wouldn't have had as many allies and friends. I would have been like the capital, the immigration capital of the world. I would have the Galactic Stock Exchange right outside my capital building, right? But I would have been really powerful. I would have had a lot of fun. I've had a huge name. So, what do you guys think?
Well, let's first
Yeah,
give
Q&A,
you a
yes,
round
sir.
of hands.
I'm wondering why you can't have the same thing in like the other games with cities, like where you could just have a lot of people in a city and then a lot of economy coming from cities.
Exactly. Like, why can't you do that? And I don't know. Like, they're bad at making cities. I think. Like, in U4, the equivalent, as I said, building a planet up in Stellaris is all about like first you have to plan it. It's like, what kind of planet is this? And then you divide it up, and then maybe you genetically modify some people to fit it, and then maybe you get some immigration, or maybe you spend some resources to make it good, right? In U4, if you want to do that, you just press a button. Like, that's it. You can have a really tall city in U4. Like, I've seen people, like, one game in U4, there's an achievement for one country called Hormuz, which is a single island between Persia and Arabia. And if you have a navy and you blockade like your own island, they can't get to you, right? So what I did was, like, while watching like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, I set it to 5 speed. And I just built a bunch of ships, and like every couple of days I just developed it a bit. There's an achievement I was trying to get, and by the end I had like 120 developments, and I had a huge navy and no army. No one could get to me because no one could get to my island. But like that was tall play. Right? I had no incentive to go out and make allies, protect myself. Right? I had no incentive to mess around with the global world. So there is something to that, though. So a lot of people interpret tall play into like what should be the foreign policy of a tall player, right? Should you send your armies out to mess around in the world, or should you just protect yourself? And that's actually a really good question. So if you think you should mess around with the rest of the world, then that's what I kind of did in that Stellaris game. Like I was sending my fleets to go save people who were getting genocided and whatnot. Like I just like there were a bunch of evil empires when the game started, but I had helped my allies clean up and to defeat them. So like I was doing a lot of external stuff, but I wasn't doing it to make myself more powerful because I knew that if I took that land, it would take way too long to develop it, and it wasn't worth my effort. Might as well let my allies take it. But in that Hormuz campaign where I was sitting on my island, right? What am I going to take more land and also press more buttons there? Like what am I going to do with that? So I think there's no reason why you can't do that. Like Civ kind of does that. Like they let you build up your cities, and Victoria 2 lets you do that too. You can build up your nation's economy. But it's like, how do you make an engaging city builder aspect of your game if it's on City Builder, right? Like, if I just see a map of the world, how do I make it more fun to build cities? I don't know.
One thing that I'm kind of thinking about, like that one reason why wide play might be more popular is just the idea of change throughout the game, right?
Wait, what are you saying? What's
Well, like why
Wide
be more
means-
popular might be more fun to a general populace is because the idea of change in the game. Like when you're playing a game, you want things to change, to improve, and just like to have that differentiation from where you started to where you end. If you have this country that starts off small and ends up really, really big, the change is just like, it's obvious. Like, yeah, this is where I was, this is where I am now, this is cool, I want to keep doing that, whatever. With tall play, it's a little bit harder to see. As you say, you see numbers going up, which for some people, maybe or maybe not. But one thing that kind of makes me think of is, like you mentioned like kind of city builder just now, like I haven't played a bit like SimCity, for instance. It's hard to tell if that's more kind of like wide or tall, because in a sense, all you're doing is like you're starting from this, and then you're building up and trying to advance everything and get more resources and whatnot to do the same thing. But on the other hand, like you are still like growing it outward. So, like I'm not sure if there's a way like to kind of like, but that is still, it has a bit more like the change is still obvious there, and there's more that player control rather than just like clicking a button every year, for instance, as you described tall play. So I'm wondering if there's like kind of like a kind of a potential for meeting of the two.
So I'll give you 2 examples. So in this Stellaris game, right, a normal person would look at that and be like, wow, it looks like a mediocre empire, right? Because it doesn't look big on the map. But if I showed you a game where I own the galaxy, you guys would be impressed, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh my goodness, you own the galaxy. One of my favorite examples of, wow, that's fine. One of my favorite examples of wide play is, I was playing a game as in EU4 as Granada. It's like a small country that's in the south of Spain. And you usually get immediately conquered by Spain. It's like awful. So I fled to the Americas. I colonized Granada, and I moved my country there. And over the next 200 years, I started conquering the Native Americans, conquering the British invaders, conquering the French, and built up a little holiday home in the Caribbean, South America, and North America, awaiting the day. Waiting the day. And then, in the glorious year 1721, the Granadan Navy sailed from the island of Cuba to Spain with a huge army, invaded Spain. I took half of Spain, then the United States coalitioned me, and I had to fight a horrible war against the United States and Spain. In this timeline, the United States had been formed by Spain, so they were Spanish. It was like Jorge Washington or something. But the United States kept declaring war on me. They were awful. I had a full annex of the United States. I burned Washington D.C. to the ground. They were stopping it. The U.S. had to go down, dude. Anyway, so I took down the U.S. and I took down Spain and I reconquered it. And by 1800, I restored Spain. The achievement was to conquer Spain as Granada, and I did it, right? And that is a satisfying game But that is like classic genius maverick wide play. Right? There's like a maverickness to it, right? Like there's like a weirdness. Like
Yeah.
I started as this tiny little pathetic nation who in real life gets conquered within about 20 years and dies in the dustbin of history, right? And then I just conquered the two and a half continents. Or another classic example is everyone's favorite nation in EU4 is a country called Byzantium, which is like the last remnants of the Roman Empire in 1453. They get conquered by the Ottomans and die. Everyone loves to play as them. Everyone loves to go really big and reform the Roman Empire. So it feels good to have a big name on the map. That's universal to the human experience, in my opinion, right? Having a tiny little country and being satisfied by it is a weird thing, I think. That is actually kind of weird and abnormal. But I think other people can. I think it's respectable. I think like having a tall, like what you need to do is you need to have some kind of like map mode. Like there's a map mode in U4 that shows development and it's satisfying, but like that's it. I think that having a good way of measuring progress in tall play is an excellent way of doing that, right? If you have some kind of visual indicator, like in SimCity or City Skylines, when you have a good city, you can tell.
Like
can
you
look
see
at
it, you're like,
you see all the people running around, right?
yeah.
Something they would think of adding in Stellaris is they're thinking of adding, like the devs are talking about it, that like if you have a really rich planet, they'll have a bunch of little spaceships going in and out. Like, but like if it's a poor planet, there'll be like smoke coming out. It's like pathetic poverty, right? EU4 kind of has that, but only if a province gets raided. Like if it gets raided, like there's a little smoke coming out, and if a province is highly developed, it has more cities in it, but it's like really hard to tell.
Right.
Like it is the little city buildings will become bigger, but again, you're right. Like that is an excellent way to make it. There's more of a progression, right? Because when wide play, the progression is obvious, it's how big you are. But in tall play, what's the logical progression?
Is there any satisfaction when you're a small nation, knowing that these larger nations are still like, that they still need to be wary of you? That
I think it's satisfying. The classic play, so I'll give you for example again, even though it's awful at tall play, is when if you play Prussia, which gets like insane military bonuses even though it's small, there is something cool about being like not even a great power, and like if Russia invades you, you can just stomp them, right? Like it's pathetic. And that is satisfying, but again, it's not visually obvious, and it's not like there's no, there. I think because grand strategy games don't have specific goals, they're more sandboxy in nature, right? And unless you're playing for achievements, like you don't really know if you've won. It's way easier to measure your success against yourself if you're wide, because you're like, my goal is to conquer India as Britain. You can do that, right? My goal is to have 145% discipline as Prussia. Is way lamer than saying I want to conquer India as Britain, right? Yeah, that's like it's an arbitrary number that's kind of meaningless to a normal person, right?
What if like with diplomacy you can like get other countries to fight?
Yeah, so I actually think so. My personal philosophy, if I want to drop my hot take, is that if I wanted to make the perfect tall game, like if I wanted to make EU4 a tall game, which is a game I think that would benefit from tall play, I would make the diplomacy way better. I would make it so small countries can get together, form alliances, and form trade deals so they benefit from working together rather than just protecting themselves. Like if you form a deal with someone, you earn money, which something Stellaris actually added. You know, like that's a great mechanic in that game. I completely forgot you could do that. It's so good. So like you have trade deals and stuff. And then I'd also add some kind of unique thing only tall countries can get, like a unique modifier or a unique type of army or a unique type of navy or something. Which is, you're right. I think those are like the two things that why Stellaris are better. Which is funny because Stellaris' diplomacy system is worse than EU4. It is a horrible AI. The diplomacy makes no sense. In EU4, the AI is really good at fighting you. It'll make alliances, like even if it's your ally, it'll like make counter alliances against you, it'll like sabotage you, it'll send rebels in. It's very good. The AI in U4 is very good. But even then, it's so bad at tall play. So how would you like specifically deal with the diplomacy handle?
I was thinking, this isn't that realistic, but I was thinking it would like take advantage of the map, like the satisfying nature of seeing change on the map, if you could get other countries to like fight each other. So like you could goad your ally into invading another country.
Yeah, that's a great way. That's how tall players, like in a multiplayer game, right? Like when they're humans.
Yeah.
Like if you play tall, that's what you should do, right? Like if you're playing like the board game diplomacy, that's classic tactics.
Yeah.
But the diplomacy forces you to be tall actually. But so I've only played like two big multiplayer games in Grand Strategy. I played a big multiplayer Stellaris game that had like 20, 30 people in it. I was one of the surviving 10. Survived the glorious Radiant Flower lived. It survived the horrible purging. Yeah, we switched sides 3 times during that war, but we lived. And there was a couple people. There were 4 players who said, "I'm going to go tall." Right? Only 3 of them died. Only 1 of them lived. The first 2 had a bad starting position. They were next to someone awful. They just got immediately stomped. Right? Third guy, he managed to do pretty well. Like he was living. He was living for a while, and then he just got outnumbered. Like there was not much he could do. And then the 4th player, he was playing Space Empire. That was like an ascended university that had taken over a planet. It was, what was it called? Oh my god, such a funny name. And his tech was, for some reason, just like so much better than everyone else's. Like I don't know how he did. It must have been like cheats or something. But like it came like by 2300 he had tech that was at 2400. By the way, the game goes from 2200 to 2500. So he was like 20% ahead of everyone at like all times. I don't know how he did it, but he was also really good at diplomacy. That guy allied so many people and just got people who he allied to fight each other, right? And like there was this one huge neighbor who killed a bunch of other who's going to go for him next, right? And what he did was he went to the 3 other major alliances and said, "Hey, I will open a technology sharing treaty with all of you if you protect me in this war." And guess what we did? I lost so many fleets trying to protect that poor man. And we won. Because I wanted that tech. Okay, I wanted it, and I got it.
Did you get the Duke?
I got the tech, and that actually saved me the next war. Yeah, it was huge. But that's classic.
Synergy is a great way to incentivize alliances.
Yeah, if you're in a tall country, allying with a wide country is overpowered as crap. Because you can feed to a wide country all your economy and all your like technology. The wide country's like, okay, build 8 million men, go. Like, you know.
So because I haven't played grand strategy games, I'm just for more familiarity. So when you play like a multiplayer game online, are you often playing with like random people that you don't know, or like with actually like a group of people that sometimes you play multiple games with?
I mean like small games I play with like my old friends in high school, but I played with them like forever.
Right.
This was like a random game.
Right. Because like the vibe I'm sort of like getting in my head is that tall play almost seems to benefit games where you know the other people involved. Because like in wide play, you don't really have a feel for what the other players do if they're just a bunch of random people.
Wide play
so it's more consistent.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Whereas tall play, you like if you kind of like, oh, this person might try to do this, you can talk to them a bit more easy because you already have that pre-established connection.
Wide play, I think, is just more effective. It just is. Like it can't not be. Like by the nature of reality, it has to be. Right? Being bigger is always better. Like when is it not?
Right.
Like if you're richer, more powerful, have more people, you're just going to be like better. So the only way to get around that is like weird things like technology and diplomacy and having unique attributes only available in small countries. I think again the way, like for example, Victoria 2, right? In that game, China has 1 billion people, but it's not the most powerful nation on Game Start because it doesn't have the Industrial Revolution, right? England has that. England has a huge navy. So the idea behind the logic of that game is that the technology is what makes wider countries weaker than smaller countries. But Victoria 2 can do that because the technology disparity is huge. In like a normal balanced game like EU4 where like everyone's kind of at the same playing field, right? You can't give Europe 18,000 technology bonuses because that's ahistorical, right? Like in Stellaris, you can't just give like certain species better advantage in attack. That's like it makes no sense. Like why? Yeah. So. What I want you guys to think about and take away, like the main takeaway I wanted to give from this presentation was like how when I asked you guys to incentivize tall play, you guys just started disincentivizing wide play. And it was so funny. It actually, I saw it happen. I didn't think it would happen. It happened in real life in front of me. Because that's what the devs do every single time. It's so hard.
It's not just grand strategy either. It's like any game genre. MOBAs, card games. Well, I mean, you get examples of both.
Yeah, it's not wide and tall. Wide and tall play, you can draw an isomorphism from those two to like anything, you know?
Well, I'm talking about like particularly, advantaging one thing or disadvantaging another thing. Like for instance, like one problem in card games is almost the exact opposite. Power creep is such a huge deal in that because you get things, you need to try to make things that are more interesting and better and better and better, and suddenly you can't control or balance anything.
Like, here's an example. In Smash Brothers Ultimate, right? Smash Brothers Ultimate is a game where rushdown strats are king, right?
Yes.
So no matter how much you buff a character like who's a character who camps in zones?
Simon.
Simon. No matter how many times you buff his freaking projectiles, you can make his axe one-shot kill people, right? He's not going to be top tier because his playstyle fundamentally does not follow the metagame, right? So the way Nintendo's going to deal with it is they're not going to buff Simon. They're going to nerf the rushdowns, right? Like that's the problem when the metagame is in a specific direction. That if you are fundamentally going in the opposite direction, how do you make it work, right? Like, if you want to say there's a metagame for EU4, the metagame in EU4 is wide play, right? The metagame in Victoria is like pseudo wide play. In Solaris, for a couple months, the metagame was actually in tall play, but now it's balanced, and both are valid, which is huge. I've never seen that before in the Grand Strategy.
Kind of as a soft, other side to that, is that, so a term that I've heard, at least like an analyst in like League of Legends, for instance, use, when a character or thing gets super, super buff, like they just immediately go from mill pack, whatever, to like being like meta defining.
Yeah.
Like that, the existence of that very thing changed the whole landscape of the game. Big Meta Knight from Brawl.
Yep.
Like the whole game revolved around that.
Yeah.
But in a sense, that single change can cause everything around it to shift in terms of what the priorities are. Like for instance, you say that maybe Simon Axe one-shotting everyone would, I know that's a bit extreme, but the point being that if you make something else that's like not in the meta super powerful, the meta will begin to revolve. It's not that they will become the meta, and the meta will begin to revolve around them, and the other characters will come into play or not based on how well they can deal with them, and then by extension how well they deal with each other.
Like if you slowed down Smash Ultimate's engine, right, and you made it like people fall a bit faster or whatever, then Simon would be top tier, right? But like you can't do that because like characters like Wario or whatever will just charge down.
Right. But that's just an example.
The other problem with that particular analogy though is that should there exist counter picks? Like what about rock paper scissors dynamics?
Right.
Like why can't wide play defeat something which defeats tall play which defeats wide play?
Right, that's kind of the problem with having, in a sense, we only have two options.
If you have two options, one's always better, and the answer is wide play is always better. Like it just is.
So what would be a third play?
Yeah, exactly. That'd be an idea. Well, what's the compromise play? The compromise play is the role player, right? No, I'm joking.
Why?
Well,
The role player always loses.
I feel like
They always lose.
that is the tall player. The role player is the tall player.
Yes, that's a good way of putting it. I have to say, it's interesting. So, in that multiplayer game, the person who was a university guy was 100% a role player. In fact, he started the major war that almost... There were three major wars that happened, and the most destructive of those wars was started because he was a quest line, and the sixth part of the quest line was like to analyze it for like some... It was a stupid quest line, gives you 200 research, it's not worth it at all, right? It's like, go to these 6 planets and check it out, right? That's it. But one of those planets was in hostile territory. So he started a war over the feeling that that gives you nothing. But like,
it's
he
funny.
wanted to do it because of the role play.
Yeah, I think
And it was so good.
that's
dude.
almost why
It was so
playing with
good.
friends kind of enhances the experience.
It
because
really, well, yeah, but
You just
still
control
ours
that.
is good at role playing. In EU4, you can't role play, right? There's no role playing in EU4. In role playing, in EU4, the role playing comes from within. You think, I am the stat holder of the Netherlands. I own Indonesia. I am the richest white guy, whatever. Or I'm playing in Japan. I'm like, ooh, yes, I'm the shogun. I need to kill the emperor. I need to invade China. I need to fight the Koreans or whatever, right? Like the role playing all comes from like historical idealism. But in Stellaris, that game actually has storyline. There's like a storyline. There's like events. It's very well written. They hired sci-fi writers and stuff. So role playing is a way to get around that. Another way to get around it is to change what it means to win. So
Right. That was mentioned earlier.
because there is no win condition in these games, right? Unlike say Smash Brothers or in like League of Legends or in like cartoons, right? If you change what it means to win from having a big nation to like having a nation that you're satisfied with, then tall play is better. I think tall play is better for role playing than wide play. It makes no sense if I'm playing Persia. I'm not going to conquer Zanzibar. That's so dumb, right? But if you're playing wide play, you better conquer Zanzibar because there's a lot of money in that trade node. So, but if I'm role playing Persia, I don't want that. I just want to do my Persian things. So, if we encourage role playing, encourage people to look at the game in like a different way, then you can do it. But here's a problem: we can't psychologically hack players to play the game we want them to, right? All we can do is shift incentives around.
So how do we incentivize?
And then we get to the same problem we had before.
To an extent.
Yes.
I think part of it is also that the grand strategy game, this goes back to the map thing. Like when you see the main image is the map. So
Yeah.
you're not gonna role play if like all you see is like, oh, I have this land, they have this land. Let's take that land.
Yeah.
Like it's just the visuals automatically predispose you to wide play.
Yes. There's a famous image that was a popular meme in like 2014 called Long Korea, where this one guy took like a line of provinces from Korea to Morocco of just single provinces, so it was just like a line through the entire world. And it was well and truly the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. It's the second worst thing I've ever seen in that game. The worst thing I saw was Tall Netherlands. Guys, I played a Tall Netherlands game. By tall, he meant he owned South Africa all the way to like fucking
Just literally.
Finland. So it was literally tall. It was like Finland all the way through the Middle East, through the Caucasus, through East Africa, down South Africa. Tall Netherlands.
It's the prime meridian.
And the Netherlands was just the word Netherlands was just like a cross map. It was so horrible. It was the worst thing ever.
But it's
like, that's
hilarious.
the opposite of role playing, but having a map encourages that garbage though. Like I can't tell you, this isn't called border gore where like the maps are just hideous, awful garbage. Like seeing the Ottomans own like New York City, seeing like the Ming Dynasty owning Egypt. It's like that's like weird stuff that nobody wants, but happens. And why? And also because the map visually incentivizes having a big nation, right? Like I don't think in real life Russia would ever invade India. But in EU4, you better invade India if you want to be a powerful country in a multiplayer game. Right? Any other questions? Any other thoughts? Matthew, any thoughts? I mean, this is like kind of tangential related to strategy games. Don't you like those?
I wonder if like there can be win conditions where you just try to like have the most significant place in history, but even if you like die at the end, like if you have like most of like the history book, then you win.
That is a cool way to do it, actually. So having alternative win conditions. See, the reason I'm hesitant is because like the community is really resistant against being told how to win, right? They don't like being told how to play because whatever, they're bad. But
I
like,
think that would have to be a whole nother game where that is the only one.
yeah, for sure.
What about instead of having a singular win condition, like having like at the end of the game like notables or achievements or whatever?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like how does
that? Like, and it'll say like this is the richest province in the world. This is like the biggest
Yeah.
navy. But like nobody cares about
If-
that.
well,
All they
no
want
one
is the biggest
cares.
name on the map.
But right, yes, yeah. So it all comes back to the
It all
map.
comes
map,
back
yeah.
to like this deep down human desire to see your name really big on a map. It's like it's so primal, you know? Like
Just make it
EU4
Then
may,
just-
may,
you know,
may act like a
different
strategy.
maps.
Let richer provinces have the font size of their country
Oh,
be
that's
larger.
so good. Oh, that's so good.
Like actually, you see those maps all the time where it's like country size by some other thing.
Oh,
So
that is smart.
Wait,
And then you just pick whichever one you want to see.
exactly.
what if you made a game that actually literally like changes the geography?
Depending on like
Yeah,
things
that'd be cool. That'd be
be
cool.
Just like as an abstract concept.
Yeah.
That'd be really fun. Yeah, so like Victoria does something like this, where like the font of your country will change depending on which political party's in charge. So if you have a communist party in charge, it becomes all Russian looking. If you have a fascist party in charge, it becomes all German looking. Like if you have like a capitalist party in charge, it's like looking like an English font. And I think if you have a traditionalist party in charge, it has like a handwriting font. Right? It's pretty cool. Like I like that. That's a good idea though, having the map look visually different.
Alright.
What if?
Are we out of battery or?
No, we still have like 85 minutes.
Okay.
Okay,
What
should we
if
just
for,
keep
like,
it going?
Tall play. You just your country literally just raises into the sky on a 3D map.
I mean, like, I think any way to make tall, like
Literally.
Like it literally gets tall.
Like, unironically, that's like not bad. Like, it would work for like a historical game. People
Right.
get upset, but like, it would work for another game, right? Like, I think in Stellaris, if they have like again, that idea that all these spaceships come by and you're eating planet that's really rich. That's awesome, right? Like, I think if you can incentivize tall play without changing the mechanics of the game significantly, but like psychologically hacking people, that's hilarious. Like, that's great.
Have you guys seen like Polytopia, the mobile game?
Oh my goodness, I have heard that word before.
It's not really like in-depth strategy game, but like it has that basically, where like things get taller.
Nice.
Oh my goodness. But yeah, something else I want to talk about real quick before we end it is that the wide tall debate, I think, is a great example of a debate that really, in my opinion, is like kind of like unsolved questions in game design, if you want to say that. So like And I think the fact that like it's so hard to approach it in a way where you don't fall into the same treads again and again and again, and we've only had like 3 or 4 really unique ideas for dealing with it. Like most game design problems, there are like tons of ways. For example, how do you deal with deaths in platformers? There are like 800 ways to deal with it. Lives, coin counts, punishments, of what Shovel Knight does, reset levels, do nothing. Have you be invincible like in Kirby's Epic Yarn? You know, there's so many ways to deal with that. But like, we only came up with 3 good ideas, like diplomacy, having unique objectives, and having unique resources and bonuses.
In a sense, aren't those all really the same thing? In a sense?
They really are the same thing. Well, no, they're 2 different things. Having getting unique bonuses and having a unique. Yeah. So like, that's troubling to me that there isn't a bunch of solutions, right? So are there any other like really interesting kind of philosophical game design problems you guys have been thinking about that have a similar kind of problem, right? Where the question itself might be invalid, or that solving it is like really hard. Like, how would you do? How do you solve that?
The whole concept of game balance, like adding new characters. How do you balance a game as more characters are introduced?
Yeah, fighting games I think are another example of having unsolved questions of like buffing versus nerfing versus tier list versus like what does this all mean? You know. The other thing I was thinking of is like the compromise between real time and turn based strategy in RPGs. There is somewhat of an inherent not contradiction, but a tension between turn-based mechanics and real-time mechanics coexisting. You understand what I'm saying?
Could you like give an example, just kind of?
Like an example that I think I heard a lot of criticism of. What was that game that came? Not Xenoblade. It was that one game. Oh my god! It was Monster Hunter actually.
Monster
Hunter. No.
Yeah, that's all.
Monster Hunter adjacent game. Like I don't know my
language. It might have been Monster Hunter Stories.
It was like a game that had all that art style. I don't really remember the name. I could also see that one game where like the president of the United States can teleport to a medieval kingdom with furries. I forget what that game's called. It was really popular. It was a really popular game. Like I don't know. You wouldn't expect that's what it's about though.
Disgusting.
Yeah, it's really awful. It's like terrifying.
So like, are you saying like where you have like a real time and turn based elements
coexisting? Yeah.
Like even Final Fantasy VII has that to an extent, I think.
Well, like not like Paper Mario where you like do a combo. I mean like you attack physically, but then your magic comes from turn based mechanics. Like that. I mean, am I wrong? Am I mistaken?
I don't know. 'Cause I feel like I don't know. I feel like that.
Has it been? Is it a resolved question? I don't know. I don't play that many.
The thing is, I don't really think it's a. At least from what I've seen, I haven't really seen it as a question.
Because like turn-based games these days, people like isn't that kind of like on the decline? Like the last big turn-based game was Octopath, right?
Yeah. So what people are doing nowadays with turn-based games is that they're just adding different mechanics to make them more like interesting, to give a sense more strategic depth to the games. So things like Bravely Default, Octopath Traveler, they have all straddled the line of, okay, so we're going to let the player make more moves if they so choose at the expense of not being able to do other things later. The problem that some people have with those is that it makes grinding a little bit like more tedious because you don't want to have to think when you're just trying to get XP and whatnot. Which grinding is another good question actually.
Oh, yeah.
That's actually an interesting idea.
Is grinding good?
Yeah.
Is grinding a good thing?
And if not, how to like get rid of it in a satisfying
Pay to win,
way.
easy microtransactions. Cool.
This can be a much larger discussion.
We can turn it up.
You could have like random items in like Mario Kart games, like like there's so many things, there's so many unsolved questions. But I feel like the wide and tall gameplay is like an example of a very particular question, very well defined like terms, and like there is still debate to this day. Like I'll go in like the forums and like every day someone's complaining about why this is tall gameplay. All right, well, cool. I feel like we had a lot of discussions.
Yes.
We can end the camera now. Thank you so much for watching.